Hey folks, and welcome back to another episode of Straight Talk Whiskey. I'm Nick, here with you as always, even though it's been a little while. And thanks for joining us for episode number 136. Today we've got WhistlePig Farmstock Rye, crop number 3. I think they're up to number 4. I haven't had that yet, but I remember when I had the first crop. It's really good at the American Whiskey Convention in Philadelphia several years ago now. But as you can tell, I'm in a different place than usual, or at least the last time that you watched the video from me. Finally, after what seems like forever, I am moved into the new place. Got it all set up enough to be able to do some reviews. Now, I don't have the bar quite set up how I want to showcase the whiskeys, so I brought you to the living room. And what we've got today... Man, WhistlePig's just one of my favorites. You know, you can say American whiskey or not American whiskey, right? Because they source their stuff from Canada, or some of it, but they're transparent about it. So, as I always say, I like to go for quality, shoot for the whiskeys and the producers, distillers that are keeping it 100% with everyone. Not going through all the marketing ploys and gimmicks and sayings and phrases that make it sound like the whiskeys have been around for, 2,000 years. But what we've got here is a really unique one because this is one of the first times when WhistlePig has released a whiskey that has been a majority of their own distilled whiskey. So this is 52%, I believe. Yes, 52%. Of 3-year-old whiskey that they produce or distill in Vermont. This idea of triple terroir that WhistlePig advertises. They've got their own wood, water. What's the other one? Well, they age it on house too. So they use their water, use their barn that they've got in there. I think they've got this somewhere. Yeah, grain from the farm, then distilled and proofed in their barn with water from their well and aged in some Vermont oak right on the property, which is pretty cool. And they do some other things. I guess they've got about 20 acres for some maple trees to get some good maple syrup. Some other things. They got some animals, livestock. So really cool. I haven't visited yet. I'm hoping to. But anyway, the other two components of this whiskey are Canadian whiskey, and they are 31% of a 6-year-old Canadian whiskey and then 17% of a 10-year-old Canadian whiskey, all straight rye. So at least 2 years of age, not blended. And so what we've got here is something really unique, and it tastes a lot different than the first crop that I got because these aren't all the same, but I think it really just shows how much the WhistlePig just evolves. And if you've had, their 10-year-old whiskey, their 12-year-old, the Old World Boss Hog, all these, they're just stunners, really. I've only had them in tastings at some whiskey conventions and stuff because, a bottle of these, as you probably know, gets pretty steep, like some of the others out there, but isn't quite as there isn't like the fanaticism, I think, like some other whiskeys that are out there. It's not like a Pappy Van Winkle or something like that, which I don't even really get near. But anyway, trying to think if there's anything more I can tell you. It's bottled at 86%, or not 86%, 86 proof. It's been a little while. You can tell 43% ABV, and yeah. That's what they got. They've got their little tasting notes here, this little card. But I love the bottle. It's just really interesting. Reminds me a little bit of what Bullet had a while ago. But this I love. It's got a big mouth on it. You can tell it's got this like intimidation factor. Just this towering stance, and especially when you take off the cork, you can just tell you got a big bold flavor, got a big mouth in there. The color in the glass looks a lot different than it does in the actual bottle. It was interesting because I bought a relatively cheaper Irish whiskey when I went out to the store to get this WhistlePig. That'd be interesting. And they're both about the same color, and you can tell which one had the caramel coloring added to it. And I will give you a hint: it wasn't this. So be on the lookout for that review coming soon. You can probably guess which one it is when it shows up. So anyway, the color, we've got sort of a warm straw honey color, typical with a lot of American whiskeys and bourbons, except that this is a rye, but you'll know the color palette pretty well. So going in for the nose, right when I first nosed this, because I typically, as I've said before, just take like a pass at it, take a few sips, just get sort of acquainted with the whiskey, if you will, and then I'll go in and do a review. Especially if it isn't something that I've had before, like this. But this, the second I nosed it, it smelled like you're just walking into like a really, I would say an antique store, but that's got a smell all of its own. Think more of like a really like old school barber shop, which just is full of like, old leather couches. I think of like this tattoo parlor that I go to in town. It's just got like the old original brick wall. It's got some really aged leather, and it's just got this smell that's just like just history and presence, and you can tell that it's been lived in. It's been trotted upon the ground. People have filled it with their memories and experiences, a bunch of different emotions. That's literally what you get when you nose this. It's just like it takes you back to another place. Then one of the things you'll notice once you get past that is it's got this really like energetic, prickly pepperiness to the note. It really gets to you much in the way that a really higher proof bourbon might touch the nose. But this being only 86 proof, it still has that same punch, which is great. Because at first I was like 43% ABV. I was hoping that with something like this, which is like the $70-ish range, at least where I am, I believe. Was hoping that it'd be a little bit higher proof, and thinking that I wouldn't get as much of that, impact that you could have. But that's not really the case with this. I mean, you get it like full force right when you nose it. Also in there is some of your traditional bourbon notes that you might get, your vanilla, a hint of cinnamon, a lot of nutmeg on this. But again, the leathery, just old like furniture polish notes sort of just come in there. Just this really like mustiness to it, which is just beautiful. So let's go in for the taste. Again, like, I don't know why I was worried. I thought the finish, would be almost non-existent. You get a little bit of a taste, and then it would just be fleeting. But I think they proofed this just right. At the 86 proof. Initially, you get that really like robust rye quality to it. That's not overly fruity, but tends to be more textural. You can kind of sense the grain in it. It's like rye bread. It's not overly fruity, depending on what else you have in it. But it's just got this really almost sour, but not in a bad way. Just if you've ever had rye bread, you know what I'm talking about, or anything with rye, like a baked good or something like that. But just really tasty from the get-go. This is one that you could just sit, take your time, just sort of like paw at it in a way, just let it coat your entire mouth, like, because there's just this really wonderful like cacophony of flavors that come through. You get sort of the sense of like that maple syrupy note, brown sugar, cinnamon. It's strange because it's not like the various wine cask finish. It has like, I think it's Old World. I could be wrong, but I think it's the WhistlePig Old World. It just has like this beautiful like, okay, this is what I'm having after like a steak dinner, or something like that. And there's just a really like beautiful like dessert quality that's overly fruity, but again in a way that bears the sense of some age attached to it. It's not like, ripe berries or something like that, but it's something a little bit more refined, kind of like entering these molasses notes in there. Just really amazing, and not something that I expected from, the WhistlePig 52% stock being 3 years old. You think it's something that is that young, and yes, I know it's paired with 6-year-old and 10-year-old whiskeys, but usually you're thinking, okay, I'm going to get those like overly ripe sort of notes, that straightly like astringent kind of notes, maybe like a little bit of lemon, ham, pineapple, that sort of thing typically comes through with those younger ryes, at least in my opinion, but that's not what you get here. I'm not sure if you can tell, but I enjoy this quite a bit. So, let's go into the finish. Now, the finish, it's there. It's it's a good contender. It's not overly long in the finish, but you get sort of those tapering, peppery, crush like red pepper flake notes that are going on in there. Linger for a little bit. You get a slight hint of honey and vanilla in a way. Sort of leave off with this little bakery note, and then it sort of just like fades off, and then you're in for the next sip. But anyway, that's what we got going on here. If you've had this before, let me know what your notes are on this, and especially let me know if you've had the Crop 4. I'm really interested to see how that's evolved from this, so let me know, thumbs up, thumbs down, is it worth getting, and that sort of thing. So, as always, if you're going to drink responsibly, and we will see you next time.